The British car maker Jaguar Land Rover has confirmed it will extend its shutdown until the 1st of October following a cyber attack at the end of August.
Something happened to one of Britain's most famous car brands, and hardly anyone is talking about it. Jaguar sold just 6 cars last month. In the country where it once symbolized British excellence, it has nearly vanished. Dealers who represented the brand for decades have little to offer, while its parent company posts record profits under a different name. So what caused Jaguar's collapse? And why is no one willing to say it? The shocking rebrand. How can a car company with over 100 years of history wake up one morning and wipe it all away? Not a rebrand, not a refresh, a complete erasure. Every photo, every race win, every launch event, every customer story, gone from the internet in a single afternoon. That is exactly what happened to Jaguar on the 18th of November, 2024. Within 24 hours, the company unveiled its replacement. The leaping cat that had crouched on Jaguar bonnets for nearly a century vanished from the branding entirely. It was swapped for a plain word mark, mixing lowercase and capital letters in a style the company called visual harmony. Alongside it came a batch of new slogans meant to signal a total transformation of what Jaguar stood for. Delete ordinary, live vivid, create exuberant, break molds. But one phrase towered above the rest. The line the entire campaign was built around: copy nothing. Then came the advert itself, and this was where things turned strange. Models dressed in bold, futuristic outfits walked through surreal pink and yellow landscapes. Meanwhile, there was no car anywhere in the frame.
Where were the cars? Where's the Jaguar? Naturally, the ad has been mocked far and wide. Jaguar's...
Not a single wheel appeared. No badge, no headlight, no bonnet, nothing that hinted this was footage for a car company at all. A viewer coming across it without context might have assumed it was promoting a fashion house, a fragrance, or a sneaker brand. Nobody would have guessed Jaguar, and that was precisely the problem people had with it. After 48 hours of the video being released, more than 100 million people had watched it. Everyone was stunned that a car company had produced this without showing a single vehicle. Elon Musk even responded sarcastically with just 4 words, "Do you sell cars?" And that line became the most repeated reaction across the internet.
Elon Musk, we should mention, he's in the car business, he competes with them, taking a jab at the ad, posting, "Do you sell cars?" ?
That entire week. 2 weeks after the backlash, Jaguar pushed further instead of pulling back. At Miami Art Week in December 2024, the company revealed something called the Type 00. A concept vehicle meant to give a preview of the models still to come. It appeared in 2 shades, Miami pink and London blue. The design stretched long and low, with an unusually severe shape and a bonnet that seemed to extend endlessly. Almost none of the soft curves people once linked with the Jaguar name remained. Online, commenters compared the shape to a Barbie toy car, to a Cybertruck, and even to an air conditioning unit. Jaguar's managing director stood by the decision publicly. He argued the brand needed to stop blending into the background, that being divisive was acceptable, and that this marked the beginning of a full renaissance for the company. But none of it could actually be purchased. Not the Type 00, not any other vehicle carrying the Jaguar name, because by that point, Jaguar had already halted production entirely. To understand why this moment carries so much weight, you need to look past the brand itself and toward what Jaguar actually represented. A piece of industrial history built from nothing by one determined young man. A story that began back in 1922 with motorcycle sidecars rather than cars. William Lyons was only 21 at the time, the son of a man who sold musical instruments along the Lancashire coast. Lyons cared far more about engines than pianos ever interested him. He had completed an engineering apprenticeship in Manchester before returning home and taking a job selling automobiles. Near his parents' house, he spotted a motorcycle sidecar a neighbor had built using leftover army parts.
Sir William Lyons. You started off making swallow sidecars, didn't you, for motorcycles?
That's so, yes.
And the craftsmanship stunned him enough to buy it immediately. He convinced the man who built it to go into business together. Their fathers guaranteed £500 at the local bank, and on the 4th of September, 1922, the Swallow Sidecar Company opened its doors above a shop on Bloomfield Road, staffed by 3 employees and 1 boy. On a strong week, they managed to finish a single sidecar. Lyons carried one guiding principle through everything he built, and that idea shaped the entire company from its earliest days. He wanted every vehicle they made to appear 3 times more expensive than its actual price. The company captured power, grace, and speed all at once. But soon came a fall that seemed impossible to recover from. The winning era. Everything changed in a single room in March 1945, when shareholders gathered, and Lyons stood up to announce a new name for the company he had built from nothing. From that meeting forward, the business would be known as Jaguar Cars Limited, a name he insisted was distinctive enough to never be mistaken for anything foreign-made. At the London Motor Show in 1948, Jaguar displayed a car meant purely as a showcase, a way to demonstrate a new engine rather than something intended for the public to buy. That car was called the XK120.
Well, this, of course, Sir William, is, as I said, the classic Jaguar, the XK120.
What we imagined it could possibly do in speed.
The engine itself had been sketched out years earlier, designed by Jaguar's engineers during the war while they stood watch for German bombers overhead. Once fitted into the XK120, that engine let the car reach speeds of 130 miles per hour, making it the fastest production car anywhere on Earth at that time. Jaguar quickly shifted it from a one-off display piece into full production. What followed was the strongest stretch of success any British car manufacturer has ever produced. In 1951, the C-Type appeared, purpose-built for endurance events, and it claimed victory at the 24 Hours of Le Mans that very first year out. The D-Type came next and dominated Le Mans for 3 straight years.
For Jaguars have a proud record in this great endurance test. To preview the race for us, are fixed in one of the D-Type Jaguars over in Le Mans.
Taking wins in 1955, 1956, and 1957 against fierce competition from Ferrari, Maserati, and Aston Martin. 5 Le Mans victories within a single decade, achieved by a company that had been assembling motorcycle sidecars above a shop just 30 years before. Here is the detail that made Jaguar different from nearly every other manufacturer of that era. The exact engine claiming victory at Le Mans was essentially the same engine sitting under the bonnet of the ordinary road cars Jaguar sold to regular customers. Buying a Jaguar during the 1950s meant owning something with genuine Le Mans racing heritage built directly into its bloodline. Almost no other car manufacturer in the world could make that same claim to their everyday customers, and that connection between racetrack and road became central to the Jaguar identity for decades. Then, in March of 1961, at the Geneva Motor Show, came the car that cemented Jaguar's reputation permanently, the E-Type. It nearly missed its own debut entirely, finished so close to the deadline that a test driver had to rush it overnight from Coventry to Geneva, arriving with only minutes remaining before the show. None of that mattered once people saw it. The E-Type brought the show to a complete standstill. Its shape came from a designer named Malcolm Sayer, a man who had spent the war years working at the Bristol Aeroplane Company. The E-Type he created could reach 150 miles per hour and featured disc brakes fitted on all 4 wheels, technology that was still rare on production cars at that time. Priced around £2,250, the E-Type cost roughly half what a comparable Ferrari demanded from buyers. This captured Lyons' founding vision in its purest form, combining grace, speed, and serious engineering for people who were far from millionaires but still wanted something extraordinary to drive. Frank Sinatra owned one, and so did Steve McQueen, cementing the car's status among the era's biggest names. Nearly 79,000 IDE types eventually rolled off the production line. In 1956, Lyons himself was knighted for his contributions to British industry, having built his entire empire starting from one rented room above a shop. Through the 1960s, Jaguar's independence began slipping away piece by piece. A merger in 1966 folded the company into a much larger corporate group, and that group became British Leyland by 1968. Then, in 1975, the British government nationalized the entire operation. That decision, for Jaguar specifically, proved suffocating. Quality control collapsed almost immediately under the new structure. Investment dried up completely. Cars built during the 1970s still carried the Jaguar look on the outside, but underneath that familiar shape, too many of them simply fell apart. Because of this, a damaged reputation followed the Jaguar name for the next 3 decades. Jaguar finally broke free from British Leyland in 1984 and was floated independently on the London Stock Exchange, giving it 5 years of true independence before Ford purchased the company outright in 1989. The Ford era brought serious investment into engineering and manufacturing, and build quality genuinely improved during this period. But despite real improvements, Jaguar never turned consistent profit for Ford. It remained a prestige asset that cost more to maintain than it generated in returns. And when the 2008 financial crisis hit hard, Ford placed Jaguar up for sale.
2008 was a tumultuous year for the economy. The housing market collapse created one financial crisis after another.
What happened next would place the fate of one of Britain's most storied names into unfamiliar hands, and almost nobody in the industry believed it would work out well. Cliff edge, from glory to ruin. A decision made in 2021 would eventually strip Jaguar down to nothing recognizable, turning a century-old carmaker into a brand without a single vehicle on sale. The plan called for Jaguar to abandon petrol and diesel entirely and become fully electric, while simultaneously climbing far beyond its traditional price bracket. The powertrain switch to electric was almost the smallest part of this transformation. Jaguar was simultaneously altering its pricing, its target market, its customer base, and its entire identity in one sweeping move. Professionals who had bought Jaguars for 3 decades, drawn by handsome design at an affordable price, found themselves priced out completely. Then came a decision that turned an already risky strategy into something far more damaging: a total halt on production before any replacement models were ready to sell. Jaguar called this pause a firebreak. During the summer of 2024, the Castle Bromwich factory in Birmingham ended production of the XE, the XF, and the F-Type, all within the same period. December brought the end of both the E-Pace and I-Pace models. The F-Pace followed shortly after, and this loss carried particular weight because the F-Pace had been outselling every other Jaguar model combined, making it by far the company's most important vehicle commercially at the time. Production stopped. Starting in November 2024, Jaguar completely halted new car supply to the United Kingdom. Dealers received instructions to shift their entire focus toward used vehicle sales and servicing existing cars instead. The managing director acknowledged openly that customers would face a stretch of time where buying a new Jaguar simply would not be possible. That gap has not closed since. Consider what this meant for dealerships that had represented Jaguar for decades, some stretching back 40 years of continuous business. Many had recently poured significant money into refitting their showrooms, preparing for the electric relaunch they had been promised was coming soon. Instead, showroom floors sat empty. There were no cars to display, no test drives to offer, no delivery dates to promise customers, only images of a pink concept car paired with requests for continued patience. People walked into dealerships asking what was currently available and were told nothing could be purchased at all. Many of those same customers simply left and bought a German alternative instead. This was not a marketing misstep that could be corrected later. This represented customers who were unlikely to ever return to the brand once they had already switched their loyalty elsewhere entirely. What makes this strategy particularly difficult to justify is that no other manufacturer attempted anything similar during their own electric transitions. They built a bridge for customers to cross gradually. Jaguar built a cliff instead, and the resulting numbers reflected that choice brutally. By April 2025, Jaguar had registered only 49 cars across the entire European continent, compared to 1,961 cars during the same month just 1 year earlier. That figure represented a collapse of 97% in a single year. Globally, Jaguar sold only 26,862 cars across the full financial year, ending March 2025. A massive drop from the more than 180,000 units sold annually back at its peak in 2018, representing an 85% decline across 7 years. By this January, sales in Britain had fallen to just 6 cars total. Jaguar's own defense of these numbers deserves consideration here. The company maintains these figures were entirely expected, arguing that halting production deliberately meant collapsing sales were planned rather than an unexpected failure of the business. However, there was a specific problem that drove this decline further. A cold start. Trouble arrived from an entirely different direction in late August 2025, when Jaguar Land Rover suffered a serious cyber attack that forced the company to shut down its global computer network completely.
The British car maker Jaguar Land Rover has confirmed it will extend its shutdown until the 1st of October, following a cyber attack at the end of August.
By the 1st of September, manufacturing had stopped across every part of the business, affecting not just Jaguar, but Land Rover as well. The financial damage became clear in the final quarter of that year, when the group managed to build only 59,200 vehicles compared to 104,400 during the same period the previous year. This single disruption caused total national vehicle production to fall by more than 15% across the entire year. One cyber attack against one company managed to shift an entire country's manufacturing statistics, revealing just how much weight this business carries within British industry overall. But before turning to what your own Jaguar might be worth today, there is a separate mechanical issue hiding under many bonnets that owners genuinely need to understand. Jaguar has a documented engine problem affecting a significant number of vehicles, and many current owners have absolutely no idea it exists. Back in 2015, Jaguar Land Rover introduced an entirely new engine family called Ingenium, designed in-house and manufactured at their Wolverhampton facility before being fitted across nearly the company's entire model range. This particular engine relies on a timing chain rather than a timing belt, and chains are generally considered the superior option between the two. A belt requires replacement every few years without exception, while a chain is theoretically designed to last for the entire lifespan of the engine itself without needing attention. In practice, however, a substantial number of these particular chains have failed to live up to that promise. The chains gradually stretch over time, while the plastic guides they run against wear down and shed debris directly into the engine oil. The tensioners responsible for keeping everything properly aligned weaken as this process continues. Once the chain has stretched sufficiently, valve timing slips out of its correct position entirely. There is one very specific early warning sign, and recognizing it early gives owners valuable time to act. Listen for a distinct metallic rattling noise when starting the engine cold, lasting just a few seconds before clearing as oil pressure builds throughout the system. The problem typically first appears somewhere between 60,000 and 80,000 miles on the odometer. Two extremely common factors make the situation considerably worse, and both involve everyday driving habits many owners never think twice about. Long service intervals combined with frequent short journeys create a dangerous combination for this engine. A diesel engine that never reaches sufficient operating temperature struggles to properly clean its particulate filter, which allows fuel to dilute the engine oil over time. That diluted, thinner oil then accelerates chain wear considerably faster than properly maintained oil would under normal circumstances. Catching this problem during the rattling stage still means facing an expensive repair, though the engine itself typically survives. Ignore the warning signs, however, and the chain will eventually jump its timing or snap entirely. Given how this particular engine is constructed internally, the pistons then strike directly into the valves once timing fails completely. At that point, repair is no longer an option, and owners find themselves needing an entirely new engine instead. Meanwhile, there's one particular detail that frustrates owners most of all. The timing chains are positioned at the rear of the engine block, tucked against the bulkhead where access proves extremely difficult. Reaching them requires removing the entire gearbox first, transforming what should be routine maintenance into an highly expensive undertaking. This complexity explains why so many affected vehicles end up written off entirely rather than repaired through conventional means. No official recall has been issued covering this specific issue anywhere in Britain to date. Unless your particular vehicle remains under active warranty coverage, every penny of this repair cost falls squarely on the owner alone. Whether there remains any genuine path back to relevance for this once iconic British name is a question dividing opinion sharply across the entire motor industry right now. But Jaguar's troubles, as serious as they clearly are, may not even represent the worst situation currently unfolding within British car manufacturing today. Because there is another case, and hardly anyone outside the industry has noticed yet. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.